Hello there, Meow Mentors. It's Cat Lady Justin. This is the Kitty Boss, where we pick, pamper, and protect your practically perfect pussycat for a lifetime of unconditional love. This is our Thanksgiving special because as we're recording this, it's the month of November. And, well, if you're listening to this at any other time, as always, what we'll talk about is evergreen. And it's good information no matter when and where you are. So stay tuned. But first, let's bring our very special co host, Dr. Rachel Geller, certified cat behaviorist and president of All Cats All the Time, a nonprofit organization on the East Coast of the USA to help people on low income afford the things they need or want to be able to pamper their pets for a lifetime of unconditional love. So, Dr. Rachel, welcome, and it's nice to see you.
Hello, lovely to see you here on the second Friday of the month for our monthly catch up. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So, Dr. Rachel, as I mentioned in the intro, it's November when we're recording this. So, it's Thanksgiving in the USA. And for the rest of the world, I don't know. They don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but it is the autumn in this hemisphere where we reside. And so, hey, if you're tuning in from Australia, no problem. This information will be good for you when it's autumn over there. But there are certain things that come up for our cats during the fall, during the autumn, that are not necessarily uh, present during the spring or the summer or the winter, because this season brings with it, leaves falling down everywhere. We have less to worry about the insects, but we have some to worry about what might be hiding in the leaves and other issues if your cat's outdoors, for example. But if your cat's indoors and you're in America, you might be having guests over the house or other issues like that. So I'd like to talk today a little bit, at least, about the issues around the autumn or around the fall that happen when you have a cat.
Yeah, that's a really good topic because we don't always think of these things as people because it might seem, benign or innocuous to us. But even something as the falling leaves can be, not necessarily a danger, but something that could potentially harm a cat's gastrointestinal system. And what I mean is that we might come into the house, we're tracking all of these leaves that have fallen down on our shoes. We inadvertently bring leaves into the house. If the windows are open, leaves are blowing in because it tends to be windy and the leaves are falling down from the trees. And I've had this happen myself where somebody tracks, even a single leaf into the house. I wasn't aware of it. My cat goes over to sniff it or play with it and maybe perhaps bite into it and eat it. And lo and behold, you end up in the emergency room because this leaf has now obstructed your cat's colon and they've become ill from it. So, in general, the fall is lovely. We love the change in colors of the leaves, but think of it from your cat's perspective. This is something new and different and exciting that may end up in her house, and she may want to sniff it and play with it and take a bite out of it. And although it seems relatively benign to us, this is something that if a cat eats, it is going to harm her gastrointestinal tract. It could cause an obstruction. It could cause diarrhea. It just, in general, could make your cat sick. So typically, it's not life-threatening, but it is something you want to be aware of that, again, as people, we are the caretakers of these cats. So we want to make sure we're aware of these things.
Yeah, and that's a good point because usually when we think about plants or things like that, we think about what's going to be toxic for cats, like what's poisonous for cats, what they shouldn't eat for that reason. But with the leaves, we're not talking about. I mean, it could be. I mean, there could be some poisonous and toxic leaves for the cat, but even things that are not toxic to cats, that are safe for cats, have that extra hidden danger, especially when they're dried and crispy because they could cause an obstruction somewhere in the digestive tract, or even earlier, they could choke on it by accident. Cats aren't always perfect, so they might choke on it or cause an obstruction further down in the colon or the intestines or somewhere else. So I think that's very important that we recognize that because that's true of our decorations as well, right? It's not just the leaves that we might bring. We might do some decorating now a little bit differently We'll talk a bit more about that next month for the holiday season. But we might be doing some kind of decorating, and we need to be careful with what we choose to put in our house because I mean, if you have a baby, you'd be extra careful, wouldn't you? Because you don't want the baby choking on it or swallowing something they shouldn't be. Well, cats are the same. They have instincts and they have very good instincts, but they don't have perfect instincts, and they might end up swallowing something that's not necessarily made for swallowing, especially by a cat.
Yes, absolutely. When you think about, a leaf, and you think about a lot of the toys that we buy for our cats, a leaf might have that crinkly sound, right? And it moves about, just a little bit of wind or you walking by is going to cause movement. Well, these are the exact things that cats react to and love to play with. So, autumn, falling leaves, again, with everything we talk about on the show, always think about things from your cat's perspective. Try to think like a cat and then try to act in a way that will protect our cats so they don't get sick. And yes, not only leaves, but decorations, anything that we're doing different that may be enticing to your cat, appealing to your cat. Always think about, like you said, Justin, with a baby. What would I do if my toddler got into this? What would I do if my baby got into this? Same thing with your cat. I mean, some of these things are very, very similar and sort of basic, rules that we might do around young kids or toddlers or babies, but not everybody has a young child or a toddler or a baby, or they just don't kind of think about it in that way because they're thinking, well, a cat wouldn't be interested in the leaf. But think about the properties of things that cats like to play with, that crinkly sound, that enticing, unpredictable movement. Well, a cat might be, find that appealing.
Very much so. Very much so. And I know that for us here in the UK, because I'm American, but I reside here in the UK. This is, and it's not necessarily true in the USA, but for the benefit of our friends who are here, this is because I hear them now. This is a season where there's a lot of fireworks here. I know in the USA that's more in the summer and the 4th of July in that area, but here it's now. And I can hear, I don't even know why they're doing them today. The holiday has already passed for fireworks. And yet they keep doing it. Neighbors do it, this did. I hate it because I think it's detrimental for dogs. It's detrimental for cats. I find it scary. It does raise my cortisol levels. I can feel it. It sounds like a bombing is happening. And it's also not great for the environment either. So much so that one of our big supermarkets here called Sainsbury's has stopped selling fireworks. They've just ended that line because it's just not good for anyone. There is very little value in it. The only value in it is that some people find it amusing and celebratory. Okay, but in my opinion, it has far more negatives and disadvantages than advantages. But okay, that's a little bit of a soapbox tirade I've gone on, and that's how I personally feel about them. But regardless of my feelings, it's not good for cats. It stresses cats out for sure. There's no doubts or arguments about that. There is the rare, of course, you'll find the exception, the rare dog and cat that doesn't mind them, but most dogs and cats do mind them and are scared of them, and it causes them anxiety. So let's talk again for the benefit of people here in the UK, but it's good for anyone. What are some suggestions that we have? Obviously, we know the basic ones. The pheromone plug-in, whether that's Fellaway or a different natural one. Those pheromone plugins, they do work well. There's also, they come in sprays and other formats, and that might be good. But what about other things? Are there any other things you can think of?
Yeah, and to your point, the celebratory thing is fine. If there's a particular holiday and we know, okay, holiday X, there are going to be fireworks we can prepare for. But what is happening all the time, it is very difficult for our pets, and particularly for cats. One of the things that stresses cats out the most is intermittent noise. They find it very stressful when they don't know when the next bang is going to come from, when there's no pattern.
There's no predictability to it.
Exactly. So that's what makes fireworks so scary for your cats. But let's say, you know, for you, there's a holiday coming up, you know in advance that fireworks are going to be set off. What can you do? One thing you can do, you know, a couple months before is create an audio recording of fireworks and
Oh,
start off with your cat or your dog, but in this case, cats. Start off playing this recording, you know, on your iPhone at a very low level in a very short period of time to your cat. And you know, you want to start off at a level that your cat's not afraid of, that your cat will tolerate. So you know you're at the right level if your cat maybe just turns to the noise, her ears perk up to the noise, but she's not afraid of the noise. She's not running away, she's not hiding, she's not curling her ears back and down and so forth. So start at that level that your cat's not afraid and just play it for a very short duration, maybe like 10 or 20 seconds. And then every few days, what you're going to do is build up. So you're going to make the audio a little bit louder and you're going to make the duration a little bit longer. And you're going to keep building up. You'll make the fireworks audio louder and louder. You'll make the duration longer and longer. And this is a really great way to get your cat to tolerate. And I'm using the word tolerate. I'm not saying she's going to joyfully embrace the noise, but she will tolerate the noise because she'll become desensitized to it. Basically, that's just a fancy term that means when we present the cat with the thing that she's afraid of, in this case, fireworks, when we present the cat with the thing that she's afraid of very gradually and very incrementally, it gives the cat a chance to get used to it. When the cat realizes that there are no consequences, you know, the sky's not falling down, nothing really terrible is happening, she will accept that level of noise, and then you can make it a little bit louder. So that type of work before you know there's going to be fireworks is really, really helpful to your cat. And then in general, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say that's a new one for me, that desensitization thing. So thank you for sharing that one. And you were going to say?
Just to say in general, you know, make sure your house is cat proof for escape, you know, because sometimes when cats get really, really afraid, they become very reactive. And your cat doesn't want to leave your home. Your cat doesn't want to get lost. But sometimes when they're really, really scared, all of their good kitty judgment goes right out the window and they just dash. So make sure your windows and doors are closed. You know, make sure your house is hermetically sealed and escape proof, because if she does get really, really reactive and run off, you don't want her to get out of your home and become lost.
Yeah, of course not. So yeah, that's also a very, very good point. I had that happen with Emily once, where we were actually outside. We went for a brief like stroll in our garden, just so she could have some grass and some fresh air. And yep, there was a really loud noise. She got really spooked and she dashed like under the hedge and got very, very freaked out. Like to get her, I needed gloves, like they're thick, like almost like a lion. You know, when people go in the zoo and they wear these super thick leather gloves, because she was a wild animal at that point, terrified. And it wasn't a big deal. It was actually not that bad in my opinion, but in her opinion, it was terror. And she did dash and do that. So luckily everything was fine, enticed her with some food, got her in with the gloves and everything. And then, you know, an hour later, she was back to normal.
Yeah.
But it was a very, very big deal to her. So it's really important to think about that dashing behavior and when it happens and what to do about it.
Yes, keep your cats in, keep your windows and doors closed, and wait for that noise to pass.
Yeah. So there's another thing on the note of of Emily and cat stuff. So one of the things that I do struggle with, and we're gonna have a whole not a whole episode because we're gonna talk about the holidays and stuff, but we're gonna have a major feature next month with a special guest talking whose whole like mission in life at this point is this feline non-recognition syndrome. This thing that happens with cats sometimes, which is they don't recognize themselves, another cat, the environment, something, and they become hostile. That happens for me pretty much every time we have to go to the vet, like even just for a checkup. Emily goes to the vet once a year, has been for 13 years since she was born, and yet every time she reacts like I'm about to take her to a kill shelter. Like it's like I've never abandoned her. I've never even been away from her for more than 5 days. That was the maximum time I've been away from her since she was born, and yet this thing is really not something she likes. So what
Yeah.
I do for the vet trips is I use a drug called gabapentin, which the vet prescribes only on the day. I just let her eat a pill, and then we go to the vet, and she's okay. It's not a complete solution because she still has some of that, despite her drugged up state. She still has some of that, and the way it manifests here is she gets antagonistic to Charlotte, my other cat, and they're not the best of friends, but they're not enemies either. They I think a bit more than tolerate each other because they will do a bit of playing and grooming with each other, but they don't sleep together and cuddle and all that. I
Yeah.
mean, we will all share the bed together, but they don't like sleep together like some cats do. They'll be at one end and the other cat, maybe a foot away. So they have a high level of tolerance for each other, but not after the vet visit.
Yeah.
But Charlotte has no problems. It's Emily who comes home and all of a sudden is full of hissing and growling, and just doesn't tolerate Charlotte anymore. So we'll have a deeper dive into it next month.
Yeah.
But because this is the month that we went to the vet and had this, so I thought we should at least talk a little bit about it and some of the things that we can do other than gabapentin, which is a human drug in this country that's authorized for use in veterinary, for animals. So we use that. I don't have much of another solution. I've heard lots of different tips and tricks and stuff, but so I think we should share with our listeners
Yeah.
some tips and tricks in case they have an issue with that. And then next month we'll talk about other ways it manifests aside from vet trips, because there could be probably other reasons that
There are, veterinarian trips are clearly the most common, but it could be, a trip to the groomer. It could be, if you have to board your cat, but vet trips are by far the most common that, I probably get that question at least once a week. It's very common. And we do use gabapentin here for the same reason as well. And it will help with the anxiety and stress for the cat of going to the vet, but it won't help with that non-recognition aggression for the cat who stayed home. And then there's the cat returning, from the vet. So basically what happens is cats recognize each other and know each other by scent. Scent and smell is very important to a cat. So when the companion cat comes home from the vet, he may look the same to us. He may look the same to the cat who stayed home, but he no longer smells the same. He may smell like medicine. He will smell like the veterinarian. He's probably going to smell like other cats and dogs and whatever other animals they treat. The cat may smell like alcohol. There are all these different smells that this cat will now have on him that the cat who stayed at home no longer recognizes. So although the cat looks the same, the cat who stayed home says, okay, this looks like my buddy, but this is clearly an intruder. This is clearly a masquerader because this cat does not smell the same. And so then the cat acts like there's a perfect stranger on her territory. And cats are very territorial, and you are now going to have the same issues and problems you would have if you plopped a completely unknown cat, into the cat who stayed home, into that territory. So the cat is completely not recognized by the cat who stayed home. And this leads to all kinds of aggression. And the aggression could be anywhere from vocalizations like hissing or growling, but it can be chasing and pouncing and ambushing. And it can be all out, fur flying and and blood being spilled. So what do we do to prevent this? Because this is not a good situation. So what we want to do, and you're right, Justin, it does not happen to every cat. So I tell people, assume it will happen and take it from there. Because always better to err on the side of caution and be able to, let out a sigh of relief than to not act and then be in this destructive cycle of aggression, which cats have a very difficult time getting themselves back out of. So when the cat comes back home from the vet, go straight to a room that you've designated that that's going to be the cat's temporary safe room. Go straight into this room. Make sure it's a room with a solid door. Close the door behind you. Let the cat out of the carrier. And then what we're going to do is start exchanging scents. So go out to the cat who stayed home with a wet towel, rub that cat down, go to the cat in the sanctuary room who just came home, rub that cat down with the same towel, then go back out to your cat who didn't go to the vet, rub the cat back down again with that same towel, and then back into the sanctuary room with the returning cat and rub that cat down, and then stop. So you're going to do it a couple of times back and forth. So this does two things. It gets the scent out of the cat's fur that came back home with her from the vet, but it also mixes the scents of her and the cat who stayed home to help her become more familiar again to herself and to the other cat. So you want to do this several times. Rub the cat who stayed home with the towel, go into the sanctuary room and rub the returning cat with that same towel, back to the cat who stayed home, back to the cat in the sanctuary room. And I say, do this as often as you can, couple times, 2 or 3 times a day minimum. But when you can, when you think of it, the more you can do it, the more we're going to get those vet scents out and familiar scents back in. And then what you can do is rub your cat who returned home. I like to use a sock. Put a sock on your hand because this makes it really easy to rub a cat's chin and face. So go and rub that cat's chin and face who returned home, and then put that sock in a neutral area where the cat who didn't go at all likes to hang out. So she can go and sniff that sock, when she feels like it, investigate on her own. And then we want to slowly introduce the cats back again. And food is always a great motivator. So we can have the cats eat on either side of the door with some treats, with some food. We can start opening up the door gradually wider, depending on how we see the cats accepting each other. And if we see things are okay, we can let the cats slowly get together again. And when you do let the cats be together again, I like to be, again, gradual. So maybe let them be together for like 15 minutes. And then put the cat who returned home back in the room. And maybe after a couple hours or so, let them be together for like 30 minutes. And then put the cat back in the room and see how it's going. If there are no problems, you can go ahead and let the cats be together. If you still see some intimidation, posturing, aggression, then they're not ready yet. So go at the cat's pace.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's isn't that pretty much the same or very similar to what you would do if you were bringing a new cat and introducing it to the old cat?
It's exactly the same, because to the cat who did not go to the vet, this is a new cat. So yes, typically it goes a little quicker.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. There is a level of familiarity that we can eventually fall back upon, but these steps and the concept are exactly the same. And I have had clients where it has taken as long as a regular introduction because the cats really get into that cycle. And once it really devolves into aggression, like I said, now we really have to create brand new associations. So it's a little bit of work. But if we know ahead of time this is going to happen, we can do these techniques right away and prevent the worst from happening.
That's that makes a lot of sense. And we'll talk a lot more detail about this next month when we have our special guest, because again, there's other scenarios, other contexts where this comes up.
Yes.
And it'd be very helpful, I think, for most people, because I think it's something that everyone has. I mean, do your cats have this to when you take them to the vet?
My current cats are completely fine with it. but
Huh.
I have had cats where it's happened. And I think for people who don't know about it, and don't expect it, it's very distressing, right? To watch
Yeah.
your companion cat suddenly going after each other, like, like they're out to get each other, like, they're trying to rip each other's faces off. And it's very distressing for the
Yeah,
cat.
like they're enemies all of a sudden,
Yes,
and it's like, and
yes,
and if you don't know
yes,
that such a thing exists, you think, "I'm gonna have to get rid of one of these cats," you
yes.
know? The truth is no, you don't.
You
You
don't.
don't have to get rid of them. You
Right.
you you can, you know, get bargain some peace with them, or,
Yes,
negotiate a peace treaty between
yes.
them.
There's hope. There's hope.
And it just takes a bit of patience, doesn't it? Because
Yes,
because I've seen stories of like fosters and people who home and rehome cats, who've had very aggressive cats. And that, of course, has taken the patience of a saint that I don't even have, where it's taken a very long time to get the cat to be not aggressive and not hating humans and everything else. But it can be done. It can be done with
and it's
almost
the
any
two
cat.
things. Yes, it's the two things most people don't want to hear: time and patience.
Yeah,
Yes.
time and patience, but you need that with a cat, don't you?
You
But you
do,
need
you
for a
do.
dog too, if you're gonna train a
And
dog or
with
it's
many
gonna
people
poop.
I know as well, so,
I think with
just know.
most people you need, I mean, certainly with me, you need a lot of patience. If you're gonna be friends with me or live with me or anything like that, you're gonna need a lot of patience.
That's so
So I
funny.
know it's true of probably most people that, patience is really requisite for friendship, companionship, whether that's a pet, a person, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's a pet, a person, patience. Look, I always like the P's, don't I?
You do.
So,
Pamper,
we have a
protect.
thing there.
Yeah.
So that's great. So I think that was what I wanted really to cover with non-recognition syndrome, and there are other places where it can come up,
There
and
are.
we'll talk a lot more about that with our guest, and have also more solutions and more things to do about it, more tricks, more
Yes.
tips, more things, because none of this, because cats are very individual pets, they're very IPs. There is no one thing works with every cat.
That is
Just like your
correct.
cats are totally cool with the trips to the vet,
Yeah.
my cat, I got one who's fine with it, and then another one who's not. So cats are very individualized, very much like people are. So there's nothing that is will work for 100% of the cats 100% of the time. So
Right.
that's why you have a lot of things in your tool bag, a lot of tricks you can try, because some things will work well with some cats, with other cats it won't work well. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work so well. Like for example, with Emily, I found I I learned the hard way that what it says on the package, at least the one I had for the gabapentin, is not what I should be doing.
That's
Uh,
very common, Justin. Very,
and yeah,
varies widely. Yes.
yeah, and what I mean by that is I don't change the dose, or I don't, I don't I don't play with any of that. But what it says on the package is to give them the medication about an hour or more before the vet trip. Well, when I did that, the exact opposite happened. I had to actually cancel that vet appointment and reschedule it for like 3 weeks later, because giving her that pill an hour before was the absolute wrong thing to do, because her problem is not getting in the carrier, because if that's a problem, that again, we could talk about that on another show, but her problem is not getting in the carrier, going in the taxi to the vet, in the vet, and then the taxi home. That's not her problem. Her problem is after we get back,
Hmm.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
She's hating on Charlotte. And so that is what, so giving it to her an hour before isn't helpful at all. So what I found, again, learning the hard way, but this is what works the best, is giving it to her like right before she goes in the carrier.
Yeah.
So not an hour before, but like a minute before we go. So give it to her, stick her in the carrier, and then off we go.
I
And
tell
that's
all
what
my
works the best.
clients to do a dry run with the gabapentin before the actual vet appointment for that very reason.
Right.
You know, the reasons, the reason you might need it are all very different. And then the way the gabapentin interacts with every cat is very different. So
Mm.
I've had cats where the gabapentin takes effect in 45 minutes. I've also had cats where it takes 8 hours. So
Oh, right.
yeah, so
I
they're
guess
all
it
there.
metabolizes differently like it
Yeah,
does with our
exactly.
stuff, you know?
Exactly. So I tell people, give it a test runs first so you see when it takes effect and how long it takes effect and how long it lasts for, and then schedule, then use that information to take it at the right time before your appointment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. So, Dr. Rachel, thank you. I think that covers quite a lot of valuable information,
Yes.
both about the non-recognition syndrome, which we'll talk about again. We'll have a much
Yes.
longer conversation about it next
For
month.
people who are listening and they're thinking, oh my goodness, this has happened with my cat, or I'm adopting a second cat, I better listen, learn more about this. We're going to really take a deep dive next
Yeah,
time.
on the 13th of
Yes.
December, I think,
Yes.
is the show. I think that's the date, but it's the second
Second
Friday in
Friday.
December.
Yes.
So the second Friday of December, we'll be talking to a guest whose expertise is in that and actually has a website and all of that. So we'll do that. But we also talked a lot about the fall or the autumn and things to watch about like the leaves. Next month, I think we'll talk about the holiday season because that's very important and there's all kinds of stuff to talk about that.
Yes,
So
always.
we'll go into the holidays and doesn't matter which holiday we're talking about. They all have a few things in common, and we'll talk about that as well as the non-recognition syndrome next month. So, Dr. Rachel, again, thank you. I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving. I know that the Thanksgiving holiday in the USA, because I grew up there, is to celebrate obviously the founding fathers and the pilgrims and the this and the that, and then the Indian. Regardless of that, because some people like it, some people have raised concerns, I guess, about there's an element of gratitude involved in Thanksgiving. So let's focus on that, and let's focus on cats, and let's focus on one thing maybe that I'm thankful for my cat. So I'll start and I'll say, for example, Emily, because she's here. You can't see her because she's down there, but she's about 3 feet away from me. She's almost always in the room with me. If I go up, if I go down, she follows. She like a little doggy. She follows me everywhere, and then she doesn't always sit on me, although sometimes she does, sometimes besides me, but she really does need to be in the room with me pretty much at all times. Charlotte is a bit more independent, although she does join, in that. I will most often have both cats with me in a room, but Emily really, it's very rare if she's not somewhere in the room with me at all times. So I'm very thankful that she is my little guardian angel, that she feels the need to be in my presence because it helps me. It helps my energy, it helps my mood, it helps my stress levels and everything else. And I hope that I help her too. So that's one thing I'm thankful for. I'm of course thankful for Charlotte too, but I wanted to focus on that for now because she's here and she's listening because I can see her.
No, that's a good one. I think if I were to choose one thing with my cats, I would say that I'm thankful for my cats for teaching me how much your heart can expand with love. Like I think about how many cats I've had in my lifetime. I've always had multi-cat households. I've had cats since I was like 4 or 5 years old. I was this little kid who would take walks around the neighborhood and somehow always find this endless parade of cats who really needed me, and I would always take them home. So I grew up with 4 or 5 cats, um, and I always would mourn the loss greatly and deeply when one died, and I would always get more cats. And what I learned is that you don't replace a cat, you don't replace that love, but rather your heart expands. And it just is amazing how your heart can continue to expand throughout your whole life and bring in these new cats, into your heart while still keeping the cats who you lost in your heart as well. And it's really a beautiful thing. So I think I would say that I'm thankful for that lesson that your heart can always expand and love even more than you ever thought that it possibly could.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And I'm no relationships expert, obviously, but I know some, and I've read a lot of books. And to me, it sounds like there could be a similarity with people and human relationships, whether that's a loved one, or a spouse or partner, or it's there's a similarity there because there are I notice at least there's some people who, when their partner leaves them or their spouse passes away or something, they contract. That's sort of the end of their life right there. It's the rest of it, they're just piddling along until the end. My grandmother, sadly, on my mom's side, was certainly like that. Once my grandfather passed away, that was the end for her. She was just waiting for the clock to tick until she expired. But there are other people who don't do that. And I'm not talking about the more crass and callous people who are like, next, and that's it. They have a long parade of divorces and all that stuff. I'm not talking about that kind of attitude. I'm talking about the kind of attitude like an elderly gentleman who I saw an interview with, and his wife had passed away 30 years earlier and all of that. And it was in a tragic way too. She was, run over by a bus in New York City.
Mm.
But he hadn't turned that into a source of depression and shrinking, and the heart is now closed, and that's the end of life. Because some people can then expand their love. And so whether it's a pet or a loved one, and whether they pass away or they leave you, you have two choices, really. You can either contract and say, well, that's the end, I will never love again. Or you can let your heart grow and say, well, that person will always be with me, or
Yeah.
that pet will always be with me, and I will focus on the positive things. Because, of course, if it's someone who dumps you, it's not, do you even want them always with you? That's a different story. But that person will always be with me, and the positive things that I took away from that will stay with me. But now I'm ready to embrace someone new or something new.
Yeah.
I'm ready to embrace more. It's not the end. Or the famous quote, better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. So I like to add to that, better to have loved and lost and be open to loving again than to never love again.
Yes.
Because that's, I think, a lesson that we can learn from what you
Yeah.
just said
Yeah.
about your cats.
Absolutely. Yes, because we go into it as cat parents, knowing that our cats have a much shorter lifespan than we do, then I would sum up what we're both saying is that cats teach us that it's ludicrous to steal our hearts off from love again.
Yeah, that's right. Keep the heart open.
Yes.
It's healthier for you. It's healthier for others.
Yeah.
And it just brings more love and joy and harmony to the world, doesn't it? Well, I'm thankful for you and for that lesson that you've taught us today. So thank you very much, and have a good evening.
You too. See you next time.
Well, this is Cat Lady Justin, and you've been listening to The Kitty Boss, where we pick, pamper, and protect your practically perfect pussycat for a lifetime of unconditional love. Please make sure, if you got anything out of this episode, to like, to comment, to share, to do whatever platform you're on, so that we can keep helping more people and helping more cats as well. And stay tuned for next month, where we will talk about feline non-recognition syndrome in great detail, as well as the holidays. See you real soon.